Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from not the Commander's Quarters studio yet again. That's right, in my friend's room essentially, and yeah, lovely background as usual. The color has not changed, the angle has not changed. It's slightly lighter outside, but what has changed is the card that I'm going to be highlighting on this episode, because if you didn't see my most recent one, make sure you do check it out, but don't leave just yet, because yeah, there are apparently some massive leaks that were not intended to come out just yet, and yeah, some very powerful cards. So let's jump into it. So Forged Neverwinter Charlatan apparently is a brand new commander that's going to be coming out in some sort of a secret layer or Universes Beyond thing. And a quick reminder, first up, a disclaimer. Again, this is a leak, essentially, or I believe it has not been confirmed yet. So because of that, yeah, take everything I say with a grain of salt. There is a card list link in the description below, and if you are interested in this commander, I recommend checking that out after you watch this episode. And yeah, if you want to purchase some of those cards, do so cautiously, because again, maybe wait until this one is officially confirmed to be an actual card. That being said, it looks incredibly legitimate. I believe it's an actual card. And yeah, here we go. So Forged Neverwinter Charlatan, with all that in mind, here we go. 2/4 Human Rogue. That costs 3 and a black. Menace, Ward, sacrifice a creature. Forged Neverwinter Charlatan gets +2/+0 for each treasure you control. And when one or more players sacrifice one or more creatures, you create a tap treasure token. This ability triggers only once each turn. So, treasures are back again, Wizards. Oh goodness. I mean, maybe this was designed before, you know, they realized there's all these problems with treasures and whatnot, and there are limitations on this, I will say. That being said, my goodness, yeah, this can do some pretty powerful things. There's definitely a pretty powerful deck that you can build around it, and one kind of a deck that might be a bit annoying in some ways as well, because, yeah, creating a bunch of treasures can be a very, very powerful thing, and yeah, incentivizing you to do so by sacrificing or having opponents sacrifice creatures. Again, I guess we should say we're just lucky to have that restriction on this commander. Again, this ability triggers only once each turn, and also the way that it's written to whenever one or more players sacrifice one or more creatures. So yeah, we shall see kind of the impact of this kind of a commander might have. First up, again, 2/4 Menace. Again, those stats are not all that great for 4 mana, but obviously with that pump effect on it, +2/+0 for each treasure you control, this can hit incredibly hard. And again, with that Menace, although it isn't, you know, perfect, you know, evasion essentially, it's a great way to potentially get it through against certain opponents who maybe only have one blocker, or again, certain opponents who might not want to block with certain creatures. Also, yeah, if your opponents do want to have to, you know, target your commander, they're going to have to sacrifice a creature when they do so, which is a high risk kind of thing to do, because that's a pretty big effect, having to sacrifice a creature, also giving you a treasure, also making this potentially larger again by giving you, you know, again, that extra treasure in play. And yeah, again, you might have some kind of way to protect your commander. You have some way to, you know, bring it back, you know, like a Feign Death type effect. Wizards, please reprint Feign Death and those kinds of cards. They've gotten really expensive as of late. And again, they're commons. Goodness gracious. But yeah, it's a high risk play for your opponents to do so. And yeah, when they're doing so, they're just going to be making this more powerful, giving you access to more resources with those treasures. And of course, there's plenty of other ways to make a ton of treasures. Plenty of ways to make your opponent sacrifice creatures as well. But again, those limitations, again, multiple limitations on this whenever one or more players. So again, if you've got a, you know, each player sacrifices one creature spell, like an Innocent Blood or something like that, yeah, this is only going to proc once. And again, only triggers only once each turn as well. So yeah, you're going to be basically making max 1 treasure each turn with this. Now, there are certain ways around that. We'll talk about those here in a bit. But yeah, on this episode, I'm going to take you through the budget buys, cards that are within my considerations for this commander. Again, cards that are less than $1. Also going to take you through the pricier picks as well, cards that are outside of my budget. And again, a reminder, that list of the card list link is in the description below. But again, I don't believe that these have been confirmed to be actual cards yet. So please take all this with a grain of salt, because yeah, it very well might not be a real card. I believe that it is. And I should say, again, with these, I can't remember if I mentioned this already. My apologies if I haven't. There's a lot of things going on today. But basically, this is a, Universes Beyond card. It is a unique card. They are going to be, printing these as Magic versions as well at some point. And yeah, the Secret Lair might be decently expensive. And if you don't want to spend that much money on the Secret Lair or, on the Commander, individually when it comes out, you can maybe consider, waiting for those magic specific versions, which should come out right around the same time. Those tend to be a lot cheaper. Again, like these Stranger Things versions, or the MTG versions of these Stranger Things cards are a lot cheaper, just as an example. So now with all that said, let's jump into the budget buys. And so to start off with the budget buys, we're going to be talking about Ruthless Technomancer. And actually, I did highlight this art specifically on it because for whatever reason, the borderless version is more inexpensive or is more budget friendly than the other one. So it did meet my budget requirement. Surprisingly, again, not sure why this version is less expensive, but it is apparently. A 2/4 human wizard that says when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature you control. If you do, create a number of treasure tokens equal that creature's power. You can make an absurd amount of treasures with this. Yeah, I mean, you could just actually at a certain point, right, once you have a ton of treasures in play, again, your commander gets +2/+0 for every single treasure you have. Let's say your commander has 20 power. Hey, sacrifice your commander, make 20 treasures. That is a game-winning play right there. Also, though, I mean, just getting more and more treasures in play is going to be a great way to pump your commander, to turn your commander very easily into a one-shot KO on essentially any opponent. And yeah, that is a very, very, very doable thing. And again, with Menace, potentially just a one-shot KO that you cannot be blocked by certain opponents. And of course, there are other cards out there like a Varrock Battlehorns, which can get your commander through as well then automatically with that. Also, pay 2 and a black, sacrifice X artifacts, return target creature card with power X or less from your grave of the battlefield. X can't be 0. So yeah, this can definitely be a way to, get, your commander back. If you want to put your commander in your graveyard and bring it back like this, you definitely can. There's definitely other ways that you can do this, but yeah, definitely a very powerful ETB on this. And again, in mono black, you do have some ways to use and abuse ETBs, like, a Feign Death type effect. There are a lot of those out there. So yeah, Feign Death, Undying Evil, those kinds of cards can be great with a commander like this. Next up, speaking of sacrificing creatures, though, for treasure, Ruthless Stave is a great one to do so. Pay 2 and a black, sacrifice a creature, you get 2 treasures. So yeah, again, even if we're not sacrificing our commander, sacrificing other creatures or certain creatures that might have some death triggers that we're going to really want here in a bit, we can talk about. And then also, yeah, hey, just sacrifice that creature, get the trigger off your commander, get that treasure token, and also get the other 2 treasure tokens from this. So you're kind of paying for its own ability itself. You could utilize those treasures if you really want to do that. But yeah, again, every single time you're doing this, essentially you're getting your commander an extra 6 power, which is pretty absurd. And of course, there are plenty of ways to utilize that power very effectively. Greatest power when creatures you control types of cards definitely exist in mono black as well. Next up, Undercity Scrounger. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to make treasures, a lot of repeatable ways to make treasures. This one is one that it can easily be activated for you. It's a 1/4 that says tap, create a treasure token, activate only if a creature died this turn. Again, with this commander, you are benefited for creatures dying. You get a treasure token when they are sacrificed. So whether you're sacrificing it or whether you're forcing your opponents to sacrifice creatures, you are going to be able to meet that requirement so you can activate this. And I probably should have mentioned that, again, even though there is that limitation on your commander for only 1 treasure per turn, essentially, with each tripper on the table, if you're set up properly, and maybe if you just have some sacrifice outlets on your side, enough, creature fodder essentially to sacrifice, you can make, 4 treasures with each tripper on the table. That can be a very, very massive thing. And yeah, this thing can also make you a lot of treasures as well throughout the game. Next up, Plague Crafter. Yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice effects, a lot of fantastic ones, and this one's on a very, very, very good ETB. 3/2 enters the battlefield, just player sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, each player who can't discards a card. So yeah, I mean, you can just sacrifice Plague Crafter to itself. Again, you can utilize, Feign Death type of cards as well to use and abuse that ETB. But yeah, getting, your opponents have to sacrifice creatures as well. This is very cost efficient to do so. And again, it is going to trigger your commander and any other, death triggers that you might have out there. And there can be plenty. So yeah, definitely a great way to force your opponent to sacrifice creatures, a great edict effect. And there are plenty of these out there. I mean, like there's a couple other ones that are the exact same mana cost, essentially. I'm not sure why I am missing the name on those, but yeah, Flashback Marauder, that's one I believe. Merciless Executioner, I think that's another one. There we go. I think I got there. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing any other ones, but yeah, there's a lot of fantastic ones that are pretty much basically a Plague Crafter. Next up, Viscera Seer. We got a 1/1 Vampire Wizard, a very, 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 very efficient sacrifice outlet. Sacrifice a creature, scry 1. Again, a free sacrifice outlet for us. Low to the ground creature. This can be a great way to ensure that we are getting that trigger from our commander. Whatever their triggers that we have, what other death triggers we have, we can get them from our commander, get other things as well. If for free, essentially, with an additional value. So again, scrying 1. No, it's not carded advantage. It is card selection though. We can dig down deeper into our deck to get to the cards that we need to win. And also, again, just ensuring that, if we've got creature fodder to sacrifice, we can turn that into value with those treasures and, other death triggers as well. Speaking of which, Low to the ground creature that is fantastic with this commander, Shambling Ghast. A simple 1/1 for 1. And when it dies, we choose 1. Target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn, or create a treasure token. So we can take out a small opponent's creature, or temporarily shrink one if we really need to, or more likely, we basically are getting 2 treasures out of this. Again, thanks to our commander triggering, we get a treasure out of this, treasure out of our commander. Again, +4 power to our commander. That is pretty crazy. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to increase our commander's power very, very quickly. We can also get actually straight up card advantage with this as well, with Smothering Abomination. 4/3, devoid, doesn't really matter. Flying, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw a card. So again, forcing yourself to sacrifice a creature is really not a bad thing for a commander like this at all. In the vast majority of circumstances, we want to sacrifice creatures, and we're going to have ways to benefit from that, and sometimes on the creature themselves. On top of that, obviously, this is a great way to benefit from anytime we're sacrificing creatures, which we're going to be doing a lot, draw a card. This in combination with Viserys here can be absolutely incredible. And yeah, just a way to, set yourself up, draw, and just draw an absurd amount of cards, get an absurd amount of value on top of all the other value that you are getting with a commander like this. On the other end of things, we can just be detrimental to our opponents by getting in play Butcher of Malakir. My goodness, is this rude. Absolutely rude. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Again, we're going to have plenty of ways to make a bunch of creature fodder. We're going to have plenty of ways to ensure that we have creatures that actually want to be sacrificed. And when we do, we are going to be forcing all other opponents, to essentially, essentially sacrifice a creature every single time. We can clear our opponent's boards quite quickly with this in play. We can also, get even more value out of our other death triggers. We can just do an absurd amount of things with something like this in play. Again, this is a gross card that, yes, does have a mana cost of 7, but come on. With all the treasures we're going to be making with this kind of a commander, if you need to utilize them for that, you can. You can just utilize a lot of mana very efficiently, very effectively with a commander like this, and this can just be a great way, again, to control the game and just do some very brutal things to your opponents. And speaking of brutal things, again, if you've got some ways to get your commander through, hey, Fire Shrieker might be a really good card to equip on your commander. Equip creature has double strike. That is very, very, very impactful with a commander that can increase its power so quickly and so efficiently. Again, +2/+0 for every single treasure we have. Our commander already starts off at, what, 2 power? So you just need to get your commander to, what, 12 power essentially, plus double strike equals a one-shot KO on any opponent. And again, our commander already has Menace. Probably can get through on a, an opponent every now and then, or if we've got other ways, give it flying or unblockability like a Rogue's Passage or whatnot, your opponents are going to be in really big trouble because, again, getting to that requirement of what? That would be an extra just 5 treasures in play, essentially, right? To get +10 on your commander, to then double strike and just take your opponents out. 5 treasures is absolutely nothing to get to. You can almost get to 5 treasures with 1 trip around the table with this commander. Absolutely absurd. And just, again, a way to just turn your commander into an unsuspecting one-shot KO by giving it double strike, just out of nowhere. So a great way to take your opponents out with commander damage with something like this. Now, though, let's move on to the pricier picks. Again, cards that are outside of my budget, cards that are a little more than $1, some a lot more than $1, and many of which that you might want to consider if you've got the budget for them. Again, all these cards are going to be in the card list link in the description below. Recommend that you check that out. But first, let's jump into the cards. So, Drivnod Carnage Dominance. Yes, please. This card is incredible. An 8/3 Phyrexian that says, if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers initial time. Okay. Again, we've already talked about a ton of death triggers, including our commanders. So, hey, let's just double up all those. Again, this is basically a Taste of Karlov, but one that you can actually use in a mono black deck like this one. On top of that, hey, pay Phyrexian Black, exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard, get indestructible counter on this. Again, we're going to be sacrificing a lot of creatures with this deck, so we're going to have plenty of creatures in our graveyard to just utilize for this. Again, we can just basically, for no mana at all, for life, no mana, can just make this indestructible, make this incredibly hard to deal with. Again, it's an 8/3, it can hit hard on its own, it can be really hard to deal with, and it doubles up all our death triggers. Yeah, there's a reason why this card is already, pretty popular in, decks out there, like, aristocrat style decks. It's a very, very, very impactful card, especially with a commander like this. Next up, Pitiless Splendor. Wizards, reprint this card. It has been forever. This is an uncommon, I mean, its ability isn't uncommon, but this is an incredible card. It needs to be reprinted. And the price on this has just been absurd. I think when I started this channel, this card was like 50 cents or whatnot. Now it's like 12 bucks or something. Here we go. A 1/4 human pirate. Whenever the creature you control dies, you get a treasure token. Yeah, this is going to trigger quite a bit. This is going to trigger a ton. You're going to be able to sacrifice a lot of creatures again to make treasures with your commander, and now with this as well. And this counts non-token creatures as well, so keep that in mind. And of course, those Feign Death effects, bring creatures back, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of ways to get an absurd amount of value out of something like this. I mean, just in combination with like a reassembling skeleton, some fantastic creature fodder, this can generate you just an absurd amount of value throughout the game. And again, every single time you get a treasure in play, your commander gets more powerful and closer again to that one-shot KO. Moving on. You can also just win with Revel and Riches, though, too. It says whenever a creature opponent controls dies, you get a treasure token. So this one is not limited to, just triggering once a turn or whatnot, or, basically, per each opponent or whatnot. This is every single time your opponent's creatures die. It doesn't have to be, it can be a non-token creature, it can be a token creature, it does not matter. You are getting a treasure token. Very easily, very quickly, you can get an absurd amount of treasures with this, not only to make your commander into a one-shot KO in absolutely no time, and also to give you a lot of resources essentially to use, but also, hey, at the beginning of your upkeep, you have 10 or more treasures, you win the game. So this is another way to just win with something like this. So yeah, be careful when you utilize this because this can definitely put a target on your back. But yeah, this is definitely a very impactful card, a high impact card that can really help you win the game. Again, either just by giving you a certain amount of treasures or yeah, by winning the game by getting to your upkeep essentially. So yeah, getting to 10 treasures is absolutely no big deal at all. Next up, Grim Hireling, another way to create an absurd amount of treasures very quickly. Whenever one or more creatures you control do a combination with a player, create 2 treasure tokens. This can make you, 6 treasure tokens each combat, essentially, right? Because this is going to trigger, for each opponent, if you get through on all of them, 2 treasures. So, yeah, 6 treasures. It's absolutely absurd. Also, on top of that, you can pay a black, sacrifice X treasures. Target creature gets -X until turn, activate on the sorcery. This is a great way to take creatures out. Very big, very, destructive creatures, very, threatening creatures you can take out with this. And also, hey, if your opponent has 2 creatures and they're like, I'll block your commander, you're like, nope, I'm just going to take one of those creatures out. Commander's going to get through and still might have enough power to take them out, again, with a 1-shot or 2-shot KO. So Grim Hireling, definitely a card that has increased in price as of late, and it's a very, very, very impactful card. Next up, Black Market Connections. Hey, this can just provide you an absurd amount of value. Even in a deck that's not built around treasures. Here we go. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, choose 1 or more. Create treasure token, you lose 1 life. Well worth 1 life for 1 treasure. Absolutely. Every single turn. Draw a card, lose 2 life. Also worth it in the vast majority of circumstances. So there you go. 3 life each turn. You'll probably have other ways to gain life essentially. And yeah, 3 life for a card and a treasure. Great. And also, sure, if you do need some creature fodder, 3/2 colorless shapeshifter or changeling, you lose 3 life. You can do that as well. So yeah, Black Market Connections can help you out in a lot of ways. And at the very least, if you just want to make an extra treasure each turn to pump your commander, to utilize for mana, cool. Just 1 life for that every single time you need to. And sure, if you want to lose some life for some cards and maybe some creature fodder too, you can do so as well. Treasure Vault. Even a land can help you make an absurd amount of treasures, and this can actually just be a really fun way to take someone out. They might forget that it's there. Tab for colorless, pay XX, tap, sacrifice it, create X treasure tokens. Hey, if you're swinging with your commander, you're getting through an opponent, and they're like, oh, that's fine, it's only this amount of damage. And then all of a sudden, you're like, okay, before damage is assigned, sacrifice this for whatever, make, 4 treasures, and my commander has enough power to take you out with 1 shot. So, yeah, this can definitely be a great card to get you there. And again, just a great card in a treasure tribal deck. I mean, I don't know if it's treasure tribal, but yeah, another great card in this kind of a deck. Next up, Academy Manufacturer. The amount of value this can provide you throughout the game is absolutely unheard of. My goodness, in a deck like this is this good. Hey, if you create a clue, food, or treasure token, said create 1 of each. So every single time you make those treasures, now you also get food in case you do need to gain some life, or clues in case you need to draw some cards. So yeah, it's an absurd amount of value, an absurd amount of ways to just create a ton of artifacts. And of course, if you've got other ways, to take advantage of, artifacts, maybe hitting the graveyard, maybe like a Marionette Master, your opponents have absolutely no chance. Absolutely no chance when you've got something like this in play in combination with all those treasures that you're going to be making. Because yeah, I mean, at that point you could just sacrifice treasures to sacrifice the clues, to sacrifice the food as well, and just take your opponents out from there. So yeah, this can definitely be a very impactful card. Phyrexian Altar. There's a lot of great sacrifice outlets, especially ones that might be outside of the budget, like Phyrexian Altar, Ashnod's Altar. yeah, utilize them if you got the budget for them. Sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. There you go. You're getting extra value on top of the other value that you're already getting. You're getting extra value. You're getting a treasure thanks to your commander. You're getting, a mana, whatever, when you're sacrificing, again, creatures that actually want to be sacrificed. Again, like with something like a reassembling skeleton, that's paying for half of it to get back into play, essentially. So yeah, there's a lot of absurd things that you can do once you're set up properly, once you've got, all those other death triggers going on. Your opponents are going to be in big trouble. So yeah, Phyrexian Altar, definitely a good, pricier pick to consider. Finally, Dictator of Erebos. I think it's the final one. There we go. Finally, Dictator of Erebos. Flash. Whenever a creature you control dies, each one sacrifice a creature. Basically, a more expensive, more effective Butcher of Malakir. This can come out of absolutely nowhere because, again, it's got Flash. On top of that, it is an enchantment, so it's harder to deal with. And yeah, a very brutal, very effective card. A card that, again, can keep your opponent's boards absolutely clean for you. And yeah, again, just leave your commander wide open to go through and take out your opponent. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to be incredibly impactful with a commander like this. And yeah, again, I will reiterate, okay, there is a card list link in the description below for all the cards I talked about in this episode. If you are excited about this commander, I highly recommend checking it out. That being said, again, you might want to wait, I'm not sure exactly when these are going to be confirmed. I would assume before the actual, D&D movie comes out, I would assume. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And yeah, maybe consider picking up some of those cards after these are confirmed. If you are excited about this commander, there are probably going to be some cards that go up in price because of this again. A treasure commander usually ends up being a pretty popular one. And yeah, this one can definitely hit hard, can definitely do some really exciting things. And yeah, it's just, goodness, it makes treasures even scarier now too. Just, I'm hoping Wizard slows things down with treasures here in a bit. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this one. Let me know again if you think these are actually legitimate cards, and make sure you check out my other episodes on these new leaks. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.